Hello everyone, hope you had a nice break, and my name is Emre Kurtman, and my session will be about network management solutions for on-premises and hybrid deployments. So before we start, I would like to give a disclaimer that there are some parts in the presentation that are still not globally available. So these roadmap items, they can change without any notice. So I have to give this disclaimer before we start. So let's hit it on. My first topic will be about the Cloud IQ site engine. So for those who are new to Extreme, basically Extreme Management Center, or XMC, is our on-prem network management umbrella. And now through the evolution to cloud-based network management, Extreme Management Center is also joining to the Cloud IQ family. And the new name will be Cloud IQ Site Engine. Of course, the naming is just one of the things that will be changing moving forward. So let me first summarize what all these changes will look like if we compare the current Extreme Management Center versus the Cloud IQ Site Engine that will be coming up in the following months. So, of course, the first important part that we need to think about is the consumption model. So, with the Extreme Management Center, the licensing is perpetual, it's locally enforced, whereas with the Cloud IQ Site Engine, it will be a subscription-based approach where we will be enforcing the license through the cloud. So, of course, for customers, for our customers that do not have that connection, which we call it air-gapped customers, they will have other options to validate their license validity. So this is one of the most, let's say, fundamental differences. And of course, the main goal of this change is to make it simplified. So to simplify and align our licensing model with the Cloud IQ, pilot and navigator licensing, and if we also move forward in terms of the functionality, as you can see with the Cloud IQ Site Engine, in terms of the cloud part, we will have pilot and navigator licenses. Pilot licenses for all the devices that are natively managed through the Cloud IQ, and navigator licenses are basically for the ones for the devices that are third party, or for wireless equipment such as Bing or Identify that are being managed today through the Extreme Management Center. So basically 2 licenses, and that's all going to be in terms of the licensing the Cloud IQ Site Engine. Of course, we have all the other modules such as Extreme Analytics, Extreme Control, and Extreme Compliance. They will all continue to work if you already have them, if you are already using some capacity licenses in terms of the analytics, control, or compliance, and you have an active maintenance contract, all the existing SKUs and the licensing will work on the Cloud IQ Site Engine. So that's, I think, important to note. And again, if you compare the functionality for your local site engine, now, if you are currently today an NMS-based customer or an NMS customer, you will automatically be upgraded to an NMS advanced functionality, including all the cool features and the functionalities such as analytics, control, workflows. They will be automatically enabled for you. So if you compare with the today's, let's say, license tiers, base, NMS Advanced, they will be a single license tier, which will be equivalent to an NMS Advanced functionality. Of course, we are not forcing you to move, so you can still stay with the Extreme Management Center as of today. So we will have a new version, which is 8.5.5, and we will have bug fixes, we will have vulnerability patches. I'm going to talk about your 2 paths if you are an existing XMC user is in the next slide. And if you still would like to connect your current XMC installation with 8.5.5 release, which is coming up in the next months, you will still have the option with the freemium Connect license tier to connect your XMCs to the Cloud IQ to have some basic level of visibility. So again, if we summarize what are your options as an existing XMC user, basically you can stay with Extreme Management Center. Okay, you will stay with the perpetual licensing. You will still get the ongoing GTAC support for your maintenance period, and you will have your vulnerability patches, vulnerability fixes in case of there are any security issues. And if you would like to migrate to the CloudIQ site engine, again, the fundamental difference is subscription-based licensing, and all the new features that helps us to integrate better with CloudIQ World, that will be available in the CloudIQ site engine. So that's one of the fundamental differences. Of course, you will get the GTAC support, the bug fixes, and again, just I need to highlight this, all features and functionalities that you are currently using will exist after the upgrade for no additional cost. Okay, so this is important to highlight. So now you might think that, okay, so I'm currently using Extreme Management Center. What will be the benefits for me to upgrade to CloudIQ sentence? So what will I get in addition to what I already have? Is it just a licensing change? No, it's definitely much more than that. So let's just focus on some of the key fundamental, let's say, features that will help you to increase the value of your current XMC install and migrating towards the CloudIQ site engine. First of all, as I mentioned, the licensing model will be unified. So wired, wireless, the licenses will be unified into like pilots for any APs or switches or routers that are natively supported by CloudIQ, or Navigator for third-party visibility, and later on in the short to medium, let's say, phases, also even configuration to third-party equipment will also be available, but the licensing model will be unified. Okay. So today this might be kind of a burden or a difficulty for you. Ability to access your CloudIQ site engine instance anywhere you are, right? So we have plans to have a single sign-on from the CloudIQ to your site engine, and you can have multiple site engine deployments with, in a distributed environment. So you will be able to access those instances anywhere you are. And of course, this brings up another item, which is Manager of Managers. So imagine that you have multiple CloudIQ site engines and you would like to have a centralized view. CloudIQ will be that centralized view and will synthesize, gather all the information from multiple different site engine instances. And of course, Cloud Speed, which we already have with the CloudIQ, thanks to the 4th generation and microservices architecture. So we are already getting these new features and updates in CloudIQ. But now, since we will be sending the data from site engine to CloudIQ, that data the variety of data will increase with Cloud Speed. And unlimited number of site engine instances, that's another item. So normally today, if you have NMS base or NMS licenses, you just have right to install only one instance of the Extreme Management Center. If you have NMS Advanced, you have 3, one the main install, one the backup, and one only for lab purposes, so 3. So, but with the site engine, basically you have unlimited number of instances that you can install, okay? And again, so this is really important, NMS base, if you are using NMS base or NMS licensing, you will automatically get NMS Advanced functionality without any additional cost. And the last but not the least is the unlimited data retention. Currently, we have this, let's say, data availability, which is unlimited in CloudIQ. And of course, since CloudIQ Site Engine will be sending the data to CloudIQ, this means you will also have unlimited data retention for the devices that are managed by CloudIQ Site Engine. So this is huge because this is basically we will never be able to have this functionality with just on-prem solution with no connection to the cloud world. So at this point, I would like to show you what we have today. This is a beta feature. This is not globally available, but with XMC, currently Extreme Management Center and CloudIQ integration demonstration. So I would like to quickly show you how that works in real life. So for those who are new to Extreme, again, this is the dashboard of Extreme Management Center. And first of all, I need to go to administration and then to the options to basically enable the Cloud IQ connection. Okay, so there's a new tab which is XIQ connection, and here there are, like, say, three important items. You need to enable the sharing, you need to basically configure the URL to connect to the Cloud IQ, and then there's the serial number, which is important. So you need to copy the serial number to onboard the XMC instance to our Cloud IQ instance. Okay, so if we go to the devices, there's a new column here, okay, and this is XIQ onboarded. So there are different, let's say, items which there's a tick, which means this device is onboarded through XMC to Cloud IQ. There's a red cross. This means not eligible, and the reason for that can be either the statistics collection is not enabled, or the serial number does not exist. And in this case, the serial number does not exist for this specific device. So that's why this device is not eligible to be onboarded to Cloud IQ. And then there's a third one, which basically you don't see anything. This means the device is natively supported in Cloud IQ, like VSP 4900 or the new Universal Hardware 5520. So basically, they will be natively, let's say, configured through Cloud IQ. And now we are in the Cloud IQ dashboard. First of all, you need to add your XMC instance by clicking on the add button. And now there's a new device make, which is basically XMC. So you need to enter the serial number and add the XMC. Once you do that, basically, there will be a new cloud config group. So you can easily filter out all the devices that XMC manages, as you can see here. So I have the cloud config group here, and I select the XMC. And as soon as I do that, basically all the devices that Extreme Management Center is managing and sending to Cloud IQ is visible here. So as you can see that there is the managed by tab, so you can filter out the XMC managed devices, the uptime, IP addresses, the MAC addresses, serials, and all the models. For example, VSP 8400 or ERS 4900, the XMC server itself, the C5, all good old Enteresis device. So these are all not natively supported in Cloud IQ, but thanks to this integration, we can see there's some basically visibility at the moment because it's not GA yet, like CPU utilization, MAC address, temperature, some inventory-based data, and also the port statistics. So they are all available for example, for VSP's 8400, and it's not just our own devices here. So we also have third-party devices, right? For example, Cisco 3750. Or HP, and we can see this similar visibility information, similar data in Cloud IQ, and this is basically a unique thing that we currently have compared to all the other cloud networking providers. So we can have third-party visibility in Cloud IQ today. Of course, this is a beta feature, and again, this will be available very soon in the upcoming months. As with the GA of Cloud IQ site engine. So this was the initial part of my session. And now I would like to move forward with the extreme analytics evolution, which we are now calling the next generation analytics. So if we do a recap that about the deployment options we have until now, we can divide it into two parts. We have the integrated mode, which is basically available for extreme devices. And these extreme devices are basically Exos G2 series, the new Universal Hardware, some selected VSP models, and also some selected SLX models that you see here. Okay, so these devices, they support application telemetry feature, which basically uses the S-flow. So basically it uses two different data sets. One is the S-flow, And the other one is the ACL mirror over GRE. So we are basically mirroring the TCP traffic and some selected UDP like DHCP, DNS to our analytics engine. And the analytics engine can be basically either a virtual machine or a hardware appliance. And then the analytics engine basically accumulates this data, gathers this data and aggregates it. And then the aggregated flow data is sent to the Extreme Management Center, where basically you can see the statistics and all this layer 7 application visibility, the network and application response times and everything. Okay, so this is what we call the integrated mode. And if you look at the overlay mode, this is purely for environments where basically you are not using the extreme devices. So these are being the third-party infrastructure. So in this case, what we are doing, basically think about it, this is like a third-party network. And generally, this is the core device that we are basically mirroring the traffic to our special flow collector appliance, which is a special ASIC, which is Core Flow 2 ASIC. And this device is basically doing a similar thing, but in this case, we are, instead of using S-Flow, we are using unsampled net flow, and instead of ACL mirror, we are basically using first N mirror. This is a patented technology where we basically mirror the first 1 to 15 packets of each flow to be scalable. And then we have the analytics engine, just like we have today, we have here, which aggregates the data and sends it to Extreme Management Center. So what is happening now with the overlay mode? So if you look at the Extreme Analytics evolution with the next generation analytics, so overlay mode is basically collapsing into a single appliance, as you see here. So instead of having a sensor, which collects all the data through a mirror, span, or a physical tab, and then sending the data to an analytics appliance, now we will have only a single analytics appliance, which basically gets the mirror, analyzes it, and sends the aggregated data to Extreme Management Center. So definitely we are making it more simpler. And of course, you might have questions in terms of the scalability. Those numbers are, as we speak, it's being worked out. In engineering, there are being tests about this. So the GA is still in the March-April timeframe, in basically in Q2, also maybe starting from Q2, and these details will be available by the GA time. So this is how Extreme Analytics evolution looks like, basically. So now let's move forward with the new stuff with Extreme Management Center 8.5 release. Okay, so because if we consider the previous TechTalks, the gap, we have the 8.4, 8.5 releases. So that's why I just would like to, let's say, give you an update, the Delta update, about what changed and what enhancements were introduced in Extreme Management Center 8.5 release. I will not talk about each and every single item on the list, but the important parts is the fabric provisioning and zero-touch provisioning plus enhancements, and Exos ACL style policy, which was available since Exos 30.5 release, can now also be configured from the XMC 8.5 release. And of course, we have some new device supports. The application telemetry for ERS 495900 is available as well. So there are these new useful enhancements. So let's now focus on the fabric provisioning and ZTP plus enhancements. Basically, in my demonstration, in my live demonstration, I'm going to show you especially the automated port templates and automated site assignment, which is completely keeping your hands off even from the management center. So normally we are keeping our hands off from the CLI, but with the new enhancements of the ZTP plus, initially we are just watching what's going on from in the XMC discovered devices tab. So the devices appear and they're automatically assigned to their sites, and according to the port templates that are configured, they are assigned to their port template. So this is what we are going to do, what I'm going to show you during the live demonstration. And in terms of the fabric provisioning, there are some really nice additions, like for example, You can now even configure VRRP, which basically, in most cases, you would need the layer 3 gateway redundancy. So in the previous releases, you would be able to do that through workflows or through scripting, because natively the Fabric provisioning part didn't support it. But now, thanks to these additions, basically the Fabric provisioning itself is more mature, and basically you can configure even more advanced stuff. So let's have a look at the demo topology. Basically, we have 4 devices, 2 BCPs and 2 BEB nodes. The BEB nodes will be acting like layer 3 gateway, so I'm going to configure the virtual VRRP here. And I have an access switch, which is Exos, which will be also doing the Fabric attach. And this is dual homed connected to upstream BEB nodes. So I'm also expecting that auto link aggregation will be formed thanks to the new feature of Exos. Of course, we have XMC, we have DHCP, we have DNS. So these are mandatory, of course, for the ZTP plus process to happen. So if you look at the demo steps, it's pretty straightforward. I'm going to power up the SPB nodes first, and then I'm just going to wait for it. I'm just going to wait for the auto side and auto port templates to happen via ZTP plus. And then all I need to do is to configure the Fabric itself, like the ISS parameters, split multi-link trunking, VRRP, and some example layer 2 VSN. We will be enforcing the configuration and verifying. And then I'm going to come to the access switch parts. I'm going to power up the Exos, and then I'm going to again wait for it. I'm going to again wait for it, ZTP process to happen. And in this case, the ZTP process has 3 parts: firmware upgrades, auto side and auto port template, and auto lock formation. Okay, so let's start. Basically, this is, as you can see, the dashboard of Extreme Management Center. And now the discovered devices is completely empty. So, and also the device tab, we have the Fabric Connect site, which is basically currently empty. There are no devices associated with that site. And if you go to the world part, basically you will see that under the ZTP plus defaults, there is the global IP to site mapping. So what I'm doing is basically I'm taking the subnet, an IP range, and assigning to a specific site. So if a device from this IP subnet comes to the Discover tab, I will be assigning automatically, without any intervention, to this Fabric Connect site. So you can have multiple different IP ranges and prioritize your site assignments from here, basically. And so if we go to the Fabric Connect site, here we have the port templates. So this is where basically I'm assigning. So as soon as the device is assigned to this specific site, then the port template configuration will kick in. So as a condition, I'm taking the device family, the devices, for example, Exos Summit series, including the IP range. And then if I have the Exos device with this IP range, basically, I will be assigning the specific port templates. So now I'm powering up the 4 SPB nodes, 4 VSP devices, and we will be basically waiting for those devices to pop up in the Discover tab like they do right now. And as you can see, the ZTP Plus is automatically staged, where you would normally have to assign those manually to the sites. And now when you refresh, they're basically automatically assigned to the respective site, which is the Fabric Connect site. So all 4 devices, they are discovered, they are put into the site, and depending on what actions you configure, such as adding the devices, syslog, trap receiver, and adding to the map, we can also check the map. The map is also automatically formed, so everything is good to go. We can now start to configure our Fabric topology. And for this, basically, we have to define our the items such as ISS manual area, primary, secondary big backbone VLAN, and everything like that. And then in terms of the services, basically, we also need to define our VLANs. And here, this is the new addition that you can also configure the VRRP or DVR instances. This is my virtual IP, the VRRP ID, priority if you would like to enable the master backup configuration. And then basically you configure your layer 2 VSN. So in this case, I have a simple example where I assign a VLAN ID to a service identifier with CVLAN UNI. You can basically use a switch to UNI or transparent UNI as well. So I have all these global, let's say, configurations, and then I go to the site and assign this topology and service definitions into my site, okay? But of course, I have to go to each one of these nodes and configure some node-specific parameters one by one. For example, loopback IP addresses. In this case, I have a VLAN definition which I don't need in the BCB node. For a loopback IP address, in order to enable IP shortcuts, I have to have a loopback IP address which I configure here. And then in terms of the topology, I select my global topology, but I configure my unique parameters such as SPBM nickname, system name, and select my loopback IP address. And under the services, basically BCB nodes, they don't need to have services, so I exclude the service definition from this node. And now we come to the port part. So I have 3 ports that needs to be NNI, network to network interface, basically for ISAS adjacencies to establish, to configure, and that's it. So now let's move on to the BEB, how the BEB configuration looks like. Here, basically under the VLAN definitions, I need to enter the IP address for my VRRP instance, and this is going to be the physical, basically, IP address of that VLAN interface, because I already have the virtual IP, which is inherited from the global definition. And I have the priority, the ID and everything inherited from the global definition, except the physical, the interface IP address, right? So the loopback IP address needs to be configured just like the same way we did with the BCB nodes, same with the topology, the unique parameters. And basically under the services, I need to keep the layer 2 VSN because these are BEB nodes. And in terms of the ports, again, 3 ports, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, they are configured as NNI ports. But now I have the Exos connection, right? The Exos connection needs to be an MLAC connection. Now this is also a new addition where I can also configure MLAC or SMLT directly from the fabric provision. So I select the member ports, the LACP key, the LACP as the aggregation, or you can also select the static aggregation. And this is my 1.4 port, which is connected to Exos. That's why I'm selecting fabric attach in this case, okay? So this is how we configure the BEB, the same way we do with the BEB2 node, so I will skip that part. And as soon as we hit the enforce, there's a preview screen that you can see here. And all these red icons, they are basically showing the difference. There's a difference between the current XMC configuration database versus the configuration which is in the switch. Okay, so the right hand side will be pushed to the left hand side, so that the configuration in the XMC will be sent to the device. And so for all these columns, I'm basically selecting VLAN definitions, loopbacks, topology, services, link aggregation, and ports. They need to be synchronized to my switches. As soon as I hit the enforce, as you can see the progress here, basically it's populating, and I need to see all green as everything is good. Okay, so enforce is success, and basically I'm all good. I hope. So we can, of course, let's go and verify that if all these definitions are really pushed out to the switch. But I don't really want to touch the CLI. That's what I kind of promised to you guys. That's why basically let's go to the device view, and from the ISAS, basically you can see that all the system IDs, the host ISAS host name, loopback IPs, they are configured. ISAS interfaces, they are enabled, and the adjacencies, they are established. So 3 adjacencies to BCB2 and BEB1 and 2 nodes, they are currently up. And this is also very important to establish the control plane. So if you look at the VLAN definitions, I can see the backbone VLANs also created. So let's now validate the BEB side, because there are some additional configurations, especially in the VLAN side. I have VLAN 10 configured, which is assigned to 110 ISID value. So this is one thing, and the other thing is basically also ISAS is also established here. As you can see, the edges are up. And in terms of the IP interface, I have the 10.10.10.10.2 IP address, which is also configured. So everything looks okay in terms of the four SPB nodes. So now I'm going to go ahead and start my exhaust switch for fabric attach functionality. So again, we go to this time, I have a firmware which is not up to date because my reference firmware is 31.1, but in the exhaust switches itself, when powering up, it's basically 30.7 firmware. So initially ZTP Plus process starts with a firmware upgrade in this case. So if you have reference images in the Extreme Management Center, this is the initial stage where we basically downloading the image from XMC and upgrading the system, okay? So this is the first thing. So once the image upgrade is, during the image upgrade is happening, let's first also check again the ZTP Plus template will also apply for the exhaust switch because it's basically in the same subnet. And if we go to the port templates, in this case, the access layer, the Summit series will assign this specific port mappings. Interswitch for 1, 2, and access custom for port 3, which is basically assigning VLAN 10 to the port, enabling the 802.1x configuration, and you can do many, many more things for those port templates. As you can see, the image is basically upgraded to 31.1, and the switch is basically rebooting. And we can see here it's basically successfully upgraded. Okay. So now the switch rebooted with the new 31.1 version. As we can validate from here. This is the only CLI part that you will see in this demonstration. Sorry for that, but for the CLI guys, I have to still show at least some show commands in the CLI. Anyway, so the switch is upgraded, then what do we need to do? We need to wait. And currently ZTP pending edit, but we don't really need to click and edit anything because the automated site the configuration should kick in at any time, like now. And which automatically puts our exhaust switch into the respective site, which is here, right? You can see the exhaust switch is assigned with the reference firmware. Everything looks good. And let's go to the terminal once more time to check some fabric attach bindings because we need to have the fabric attach which should automatically be established. So let's check the fabric attach elements configuration. So port 1 and 2, the server is visible through the LLDP communication. So that part of the automation is also done. And this is really important, show sharing when we do the link aggregation, which is automatically established with the D flag, which means that the dynamically created shared port. So normally you have to do it manually, but starting from the latest exhaust releases, you can now have this also automatically formed if you have an SMLT cluster. Okay, so this is really important. And here you can see the port templates, they're also automatically configured. With port 3, I have the VLAN 10 untagged, and I have the net login, the .1x configuration also enabled for port 3. So basically, starting from powering up the devices, you don't really need to do anything but just let the Extreme Management Center and the native integration between the Fabric and Fabric Connect and Fabric Attach devices to take care of everything. You just need to pre-provision all the items accordingly. Okay, so this concludes the demonstration for ZTP Plus and Fabric provisioning. As a last item, I would like to show you also how Acl policy with exhaust looks like. Normally, if we compare with the, let's say, the existing style that we do the policies, the ACL style policy is basically introducing a single ordered rules, just like a traditional access control list. So it's basically a more standards approach. You can have 5-tuple rule match support, including like source IP, source port, destination IP, destination port, and the class of service. So this is important. And how do we manage it from XMC? You just need to go to the policies. And here, this is the tricky part. This is the trick that you need to know. Under the global domain settings, you need to enable the role ACL mode. Okay. Once you do that, now you can create the ACL style policy rules, and they will be blue, so you can differentiate, because normally the policy rules are green. And you here basically, if you remember the policy, you can have just one line of traffic description, where here you can basically put more lines than that. Okay. And the rule order here matters, because this is like ACL style. So you can change the rule order. For example, here I'm disabling telnet to destination 10.0/24, and I'm allowing to as exception the source IP address, which was quite tricky to do with the policy approach that we have. So this is it in terms of the demonstration and all the topics that I want to discuss with you today for on-premise and hybrid deployments. But now we have a special guest, Shlomo Blanca from seminar Kibbutzim College in Israel. So we will have a conversation with him how he is using the extreme solutions in his network. Thank you for listening. Goodbye. So today's special use case is Kibbutzim College of Education in Israel, and our guest is Shlomo Blanca, is the infrastructure manager in Kibbutzim College. Hello, Shlomo.
Hello, Emily. How are you?
Thank you very much. How are you today?
Thank you very much. I'm fine too.
And we are really happy to have you here in our TechTalks 5.0 event. We thank you once again to agree on discussing with us your solutions and how you are using extreme technologies. So if you can please talk about some details regarding the Kibbutzim College, like size of the college in terms of the students or the staff, maybe some fun facts about also yourself. So yeah.
Okay, like you see, Kibbutzim College is the largest academic college in Israel and has two locations in Tel Aviv. It was founded in 1939 when my parents were 6 years old. The college educates over 6,000 students each year. One out of every 4 educators in Israel is a Kibbutzim College graduate. We have approximately 1,000 lecturers and almost 300 administrative staff members. The college offers a wide range of programs and academic degrees. Our main focus is to offer graduates certification to teach in an elementary school and high school.
Okay, that's great to know. So, and since when actually you are the infrastructure manager of Kibbutzim College? So, and what are the most challenging aspects of being an infrastructure manager of such a big environment with so many diversities of different users, students, staff? So it must have been really difficult to manage such a network, right?
A little. I have been working at Kibbutzim College for 26 years, since 1994, not long time. When I started working here, the college had newest technology available on the market, then which was hubs and coaxial cable. I had various roles. We were 2 technicians who took care of green terminals and a few pieces without hard disk. They were booted from NICard. Today I am infrastructure manager, and the IT team comprises over 20 members. and we maintain more than 1,000 pieces and almost 3,000 switch ports. We are faced with a lot of challenges. Every day we are exposed to new technology and we are asked to incorporate some of them into the organization. I think the biggest challenge in today's era is cybersecurity. We have a lot of equipment that is connected to the network with multiple users. We are committed to business continuity as network stability is a main support for all of our core components such security structure, storage server, college application, operating system. We are always thinking of how to improve network stability and keep these components running continuously. If one of them stops working or doesn't work properly, it causes downtime. So we are assisted by a few extreme technology like extreme access control and Fabric Connect to achieve this goal.
Okay, so definitely we will talk more details about the solutions you are using. And before going deep dive into those, I would like to also ask you about your first encounter with extreme networks. So when was it and how was it? Which specific technology that you started with an extreme networks or even before the other brands that we acquired?
As in 1999, 20 years ago, we replaced our main hub with Cabletron main switch. And in 97, after the Interazis merged with Cabletron, we replaced our main switch with Interazis. It's called N7. That all time we use Interazis wired and wireless like B2, B3, B5 switches, control access points. In 2013, Extreme Network acquired Interazis, so I encountered Extreme Network at the beginning. And 2 years ago, we started to replace all Interazis switches with Extreme Network like ERS, VSP, Exos switches. So we are a loyal customer.
Yeah, definitely, and thank you for that. And so now we all know that which type of, let's say, devices that you use. But can you talk a bit more about the solution part of it, or in terms of the softwares that you are using? So what other extreme solutions that you are using? Can you talk a bit more in detail about that?
Yes, we are currently using Extreme Network Access Control. We used it since 2013. This is very helpful for us as it gives us the ability to apply the appropriate policies properly across the entire network over all individual users and IoT devices. This solution gives us control over who, where, and when authorized and unauthorized devices and users connected to the network, and which these services to allow and which policies to enforce in order to prevent unauthorized users or compromised endpoints, regardless of whether they came from wireless or wired networks. This also gives us a centralized, in-depth visibility, which is very efficient and simplifies management with one single pane of glass. We use wireless access point and control from Extreme as well. We have two campus controllers that work as a peer. This allow for an automatic failover process during which, in case of failover, each controller back up the other, while the controller manage approximately 150 access points, that 50 of them, which are Wi-Fi 6, is a new generation. The controllers are integrated with network access control, role and policy authentication, and authorization function. So basically, network access control solution applies policy to both wired and wireless devices. This is reduced administration time and effort. The user can roam across the network while still having real-time session availability. This result is in improved productivity, which is seamless and transparent to the user. We also have two technology that we implemented 3 months ago. That is Fabric Connect and Fabric Attach. Because like you know, we have two sites. We are using all the benefit of the services. Same services, VLAN configuration, or configure on both campus and steals network from increased security. And of course, we also have Extreme Management Center to configure switches and upgrade their firmware. The configuration backed up and compare the old with the new configuration. It's very useful for diagnostic and troubleshooting technical issue if you want to see what configuration was 2 days ago, for example. Also, XNC allow us.
So before moving into that part, Shlomo, so I know that you are using network access control, and definitely it's very important to diversify or to apply different policies to different user groups, because as you have many different user groups, now I'm showing the dashboard of extreme control that you are using, and I can see different policies, different device types. Students are bringing their own devices, BYOD, so you need to apply different policies. So security is really important for you. And as you mentioned, Fabric Connect, which you were introduced lately and now you started using it, it's also another part that you provide the security and hyper-segmentation to your network. So I would like to know a bit about this. So what was the driver to change from a traditional networking model to the Fabric Connect, and what problems did it solve, basically? Can you talk about this a bit more?
Yes, I think they should be called Magic Connect, not Fabric Connect.
Nice
It's
one,
amazing technology. For me, this is like magic. Before implementing this technology, we used to define and configure services manually. For example, if we wanted to install access point to switch, we had to create a tunnel between the access point and the controller. All services and equipment between the access point and controller would have to be defined and then pass through this tunnel in order to allow service transition. Now we don't need any manual configuration. Since this access point is authorized to work in the network, as soon as access point is plugged in, the entire configuration is defined automatically. When the device is unplugged, no matter which device, access point, camera, printer, the system unconfigure the service that was configured automatically, and the service is automatically removed. This enhances security, save time and effort, and prevent mistake. Many times we define services and make changes, but forget to remove unnecessary services. So this function contributes simplicity and speed of explanation.
And as a final question and comment, maybe. So I would like to get also your view on the cloud networking, because as you probably know, now Extreme Networks has a vision of being an end-to-end cloud-driven network management provider. So would you consider to have a cloud-based management in the future, which also has like tight integration with your current on-prem Extreme Management Center suite?
Well, cloud management is very interesting and quite popular nowadays. We also would like to understand the value behind it. And we also know that Extreme is launching cloud-based next month for Israel market. So we are closely following this, and for the future, we are open to new technology as we always are.
Okay, that's great. That's great, Shlomo. So this is actually the end of my questions. Do you have anything to add? Anything, any
Yes,
comments?
if I could have one more minute, please, I would
Sure,
like to
sure.
take this opportunity to thank GTAC for supporting and helping 24/7. They provide answers and solve many problems professionally and quickly. There was no problem that was not solved. When I encounter an urgent case, I merely dialed a toll-free number and was received by customer service who was willing and able to help. Even though Extreme equipment is very reliable, I think a support always available in Extreme if necessary. And also, regardless of what equipment the customer he had, always using support is very important. Thank you very much to entire GTAC team.
Thank you, thank you, thank you for this note, Shlomo. Definitely, we appreciate it, and we are here for you to support you in case of you have problems or you don't have problems all the time.
Very much.
Thank you once again for participating to our Tech Talks event, and have a nice day to you.
Have a nice day too. Thank you.